was reported by Alexa Filippo that numerous teams were interested in Hull, and she chose to return to the Fever. And obviously, Lexie brings a lot of things that you just can't teach. So, I think Caitlin had said it before that every team needs a Lexie Hull. Correct, right? A hustle player, shoots the three ball. Sometimes she's not perfect making layups or whatever the case, and can go through shooting slumps.
Lexie Hull officially back on a multi-year deal. Kelsey Mitchell locked in on a supermax at $1.4 million for 1 year. Monique Billings added from the Atlanta Dream. And the biggest addition of all, Caitlin Clark healthy for a full season. On paper, the Indiana Fever just had the kind of off-season that makes championship runs possible. But here's what's fascinating about this entire roster construction strategy. While other teams were making splashy moves and grabbing headlines, the Fever did something most front offices struggle with. They built around their superstars instead of chasing shiny objects. And that decision reveals something critical about how championship teams are actually constructed in this league.
With Caitlin Clark at Team USA, that was something that was on display. Like the first time they touched the floor together, like literally, like the second they were on the floor together, Clark found Billings on the roll here. You can see the screen in the roll. This is against Senegal, but a big body in Billings, obviously. And then Caitlin, we know what kind of passer she is. But the key thing here, I know this is a simple play. The key thing is it's the instant they took the floor together and the finish right there. Because Billings shot.
That chemistry showed up immediately. First time Caitlin Clark and Monique Billings touched the floor together for Team USA against Senegal, and the connection was instant. Simple screen and roll, Clark with the pocket pass, Billings with the finish. Elementary basketball, but here's why it matters. Billings shot 81% at the rim last season. 81%. That's not just good, that's elite finishing ability in a league where contested layups are a constant reality. Compare that to what the Fever dealt with last year. How many times did we watch Caitlin thread a perfect pass only to see the finish clanked off the rim? How many potential assists evaporated because the player on the receiving end couldn't convert? Billings solves that problem. She's a reliable finisher who doesn't need the ball in her hands to operate, can run the floor in transition, and brings the kind of physical presence Indiana desperately needed in the paint. The only box she doesn't check? Three-point shooting. She hit 28% from beyond the arc last season. But when you're getting everything else, that's a trade-off worth making.
And I'm sure Caitlin Clark had input, to be honest with you, on these decisions and who the Fever were looking at. And with their salary cap, you couldn't, realistically, you couldn't expect much more than one significant addition if they were going to bring everybody back. Just no disrespect to Tyasha Howard, but just a better.
Watch that seal. Billings runs the floor, establishes position, and finishes through contact. This is what the Fever were missing with Tyasha Howard. No disrespect to Howard, but she needs the ball to operate effectively in the half court. Her nickname might be Flash for her ability to run, but in a crowded offense with Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell dominating touches, you need players who can thrive without constant involvement. Billings fits that role perfectly. She sets screens, rolls hard, finishes efficiently, and most importantly, she understands her role. That's not a small thing when you're joining a team with established stars and clearly defined hierarchies.
Quality she has.
Mo actually set this whole thing up. She was like, we got in the huddle and Sosa was fixing her mouth. And we didn't know what Sosa was going to play. Long story short, she was like, we got a chance to win the game. And she looked at me, she pointed at my chest, she got in my face in a confident way and was just like, we got a chance to win it. I want you to win it for us. She said, you're going to win it. And so it's always about seeing the person next to you believe in you. It's nothing like feeling value in your locker room, within your culture, especially as a basketball club here in Hawaii. That's hard to find. And so shout out to Monique Billings for kind of being a resilient person, being a selfless person all the time.
So Kelsey Mitchell, a big fan of Monique Billings as well, telling her to shoot the ball, win the game.
That's Kelsey Mitchell talking about Monique Billings during their time together at Ohio State. She looked at me, pointed at my chest, got in my face, and said, you're going to win this game for us. That's leadership. That's the kind of teammate who elevates everyone around her, not through individual brilliance, but through accountability and belief in others. And here's what makes this signing even more strategic. Billings already has chemistry with two of the Fever's core players. She played with Kelsey Mitchell in college. She played with Caitlin Clark for Team USA. The familiarity is already there. The trust is already established. When you're trying to build championship-level chemistry in a short WNBA season, those existing relationships matter enormously. Think about how this roster fits together now. Caitlin Clark running the offense with the ball in her hands. Kelsey Mitchell providing elite scoring on and off the ball. Aliyah Boston anchoring the defense and providing a second interior presence. Lexie Hull bringing the hustle, defense, and three-point shooting that every championship team needs. And now Billings adding physicality, screening, rolling, and reliable finishing at the rim.
I was sitting back laughing kind of. People are crashing out because the Fever just aren't making moves for the sake of making moves as other teams are making moves. But when you start with Clark, Boston, and Mitchell, you're way ahead of the game. I mean, this was a team that was within a game of the WNBA finals with Caitlin Clark out for the season, with Sophie Cunningham out for the season, Damiris Dantas out for the season, Ari McDonald out for the season, Chloe Bibby out for the season, Sydney Colson out for the season. You know, and even the crash outs about Dantas, if that turns out to be true, okay, on a vet minimum.
The Fever crash outs were in full panic mode during free agency. Why aren't they making moves? Why are other teams getting all the attention? The front office is incompetent. And the entire time, Indiana's management was sitting back watching other teams overpay for marginal upgrades while they quietly locked down their core and made one targeted addition that actually fits their system. This is how competent front offices operate. They don't make moves for the sake of making moves. They don't chase headlines or try to win free agency press conferences. They identify what they need, they target players who fill those specific needs, and they build around their franchise cornerstones. Start with Clark, Boston, and Mitchell. That's already a foundation most teams would kill for. Then consider what the Fever dealt with last season. Sophie Cunningham out for the season. Damiris Dantas out for the season. Erica Wheeler out for the season. Chloe Bibby out for the season. Sydney Colson out for the season. They were one game away from the WNBA Finals, despite playing with essentially a skeleton crew for significant stretches. Now imagine that same core but healthy. Imagine Caitlin Clark with a full offseason to recover, train, and prepare, instead of jumping straight from college to the WNBA grind. Imagine Aliyah Boston with another year of development and chemistry with her point guard. Imagine Kelsey Mitchell operating with consistent help instead of being forced to carry impossible offensive loads.
Yeah, that was amusing to me. It's like, what are they doing? The front office is incompetent. I don't know, building around their superstars, perhaps. And then they make the Billings move. They make the moves to secure the rest of the core. And overall, I think that gives the offseason, regardless of what happens from here, a good score. Because, again, they're making that addition.
The Fever aren't done making moves. There are rumors about Tyasha Harris as a backup point guard, potentially bringing Nalissa Smith back, and other depth pieces to fill out the roster. But the foundation is set, the core is locked in, the key addition is made, and here's what separates good off seasons from great ones. Knowing when you're already ahead. The Fever didn't need to reinvent themselves, they didn't need to blow everything up and start over. They needed to keep their stars, add one complementary piece who fits the system, and trust that health and development would take care of the rest. That's exactly what they did.
Hopefully run it back with the rest of the squad, and with the rest of the squad healthy this time around. You can never control that, but there's just, you just can't foresee the odds. What are the odds? There's a repeat of last year. I don't even like to put that in the universe. Let me just say,
2 thumbs up for the Fever's offseason. And here's why this matters beyond just Indiana's championship aspirations. This is a masterclass in roster construction that every WNBA team should study. Start with your superstars. Caitlin Clark is the foundation everything else is built around. She's the generational talent who changes the entire trajectory of a franchise. Aliyah Boston is the defensive anchor and interior presence who complements Clark's offensive brilliance. Kelsey Mitchell is the proven scorer who can carry offensive loads when needed and operate both on and off the ball. Once you have those 3 locked in, every other decision becomes clearer. You're not looking for stars. You're looking for complementary pieces who maximize what your stars do best. Lexie Hull brings hustle, defense, and three-point shooting without needing plays called for her. Monique Billings brings physicality, screening, rolling, and elite finishing without needing the ball in her hands. These aren't glamorous additions that generate ESPN highlights, but they're the pieces that actually win championships. Compare this approach to what we've seen from other teams this offseason. Big names changing cities, max contracts being thrown around, franchises making desperate moves to stay relevant. And meanwhile, Indiana quietly built a roster that actually makes sense. A roster where every player has a clearly defined role. A roster where the hierarchy is established and accepted. A roster where the supporting cast is specifically designed to maximize the stars rather than compete with them for touches. The Fever were one game away from the WNBA Finals last season despite catastrophic injury luck. They lost 5 rotation players for significant stretches. They were playing rookies and emergency call-ups in crucial playoff moments. And they still nearly made it through. Now imagine that same team with everyone healthy, with Caitlin Clark having a full off season to prepare, with Monique Billings added to provide the interior presence they were missing. That's a championship caliber roster, not because they made the splashiest moves or grabbed the biggest headlines, but because they understood what they needed and executed a plan to get it. Here's what makes Billings such a perfect fit specifically. She doesn't need the ball to be effective. That's crucial when you're playing alongside Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell, 2 players who need significant touches to maximize their impact. Billings thrives in the pick and roll, setting screens and rolling hard to the rim. She's an 81% finisher at the rim, which means when Clark finds her with those pocket passes we know are coming, the assist actually converts. She can run the floor in transition, which fits perfectly with Clark's ability to push pace and find teammates in space. She brings physicality and size that Indiana desperately needed, especially when matching up against teams with dominant post players. The only real weakness is three-point shooting at 28%, but here's why that's acceptable. The Fever already have spacing from Clark, Mitchell, and Hull. They don't need Billings camping in the corner waiting for kickouts. They need her setting screens, rolling hard, crashing the offensive glass, and finishing at the rim. That's exactly what she provides. And the chemistry piece cannot be overstated. Billings played with Kelsey Mitchell at Ohio State. She played with Caitlin Clark for Team USA. Those aren't just names on a roster. Those are established relationships with existing trust and understanding. When you're trying to build championship-level chemistry in a WNBA season that's only a few months long, having those existing connections is invaluable. There's no learning curve. There's no awkward adjustment period. They already know how each other plays. Think about the position this puts the rest of the league in. The Fever were already one of the most dangerous teams in the WNBA last season, despite being decimated by injuries. Now they're bringing everyone back healthy. They've added a piece that specifically addresses their biggest weakness, and they have a full offseason to build chemistry and refine their system. That's terrifying if you're competing in the Eastern Conference. What are the odds of a repeat injury catastrophe like last season? You can never control health completely, but the statistical likelihood of losing 5 rotation players again is minimal. Even if they deal with normal injury luck, this roster is deep enough and talented enough to withstand it. And if they stay relatively healthy, this is a team that can legitimately compete for a championship. The Fever's offseason strategy also reveals something important about how the WNBA landscape is shifting. For years, the league has been dominated by teams that stockpile veteran talent and rely on established stars. But Indiana is building something different. They're building around a generational rookie in Caitlin Clark, pairing her with a young defensive anchor in Aliyah Boston, adding a proven scorer in Kelsey Mitchell, and surrounding them with complementary pieces who understand their roles. That's a sustainable model. That's how you build a dynasty rather than chase a single championship window. And the front office deserves enormous credit for resisting the temptation to make splashy moves just to satisfy fans clamoring for action. It would have been easy to overpay for a big name just to generate headlines. It would have been easy to blow up the roster and start over after falling short in the playoffs. Instead, they trusted their evaluation, they trusted their core, and they made targeted additions that actually improved the team rather than just changing it for the sake of change. So when you look at the complete picture of Indiana's offseason, here's what you see. Caitlin Clark healthy and ready for a full season. Aliyah Boston entering her second year with another year of development. Kelsey Mitchell locked in on a supermax deal. Lexie Hull back on a multi-year contract. Monique Billings added to provide exactly what the roster was missing, and a front office that understands how to build around superstars rather than compete with them. That's not just a successful offseason, that's a championship caliber offseason. And the rest of the league should be paying attention, because the Fever just showed everyone how it's done. They didn't chase headlines. They didn't make moves for the sake of making moves. They identified what they needed, they got it, and they're positioned to compete for titles for years to come. The question now isn't whether the Fever had a good offseason. The question is whether the rest of the league can match what Indiana just built. Because right now, with this roster construction and this core locked in, the Fever are positioned to dominate the Eastern Conference for the foreseeable future. So what do you think? Did the Fever nail this offseason, or are there moves they should have made that they missed? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and let's talk about whether Indiana is now the favorite to come out of the East next season.